What are the big problems in the world? Everyone talks about climate change. This is a big problem we should all think about. But there is a bigger problem. The bigger problem is human thinking. Our thinking is not very good. We are very happy about it. We are very complacent about it. But our human thinking is not very good. Why? Because it is based too much on judgment, not enough on design. So if there is a conflict, we make judgments: who is wrong, who has broken the law, who has done badly, rather than design a way forward. How did this happen? The time of the Renaissance, when Greek thinking came into Europe, the people running schools and universities and thinking in general were church people. And of course, they did not need perceptual thinking, they did not need creative thinking, they did not need design thinking. What they needed was truth, logic, and argument to prove the heretics wrong. So that became the key thinking of Western culture, Western civilization, and it has remained so to this day. We pay very little attention to perceptual thinking, but perceptual thinking is much more important than logical thinking. Research at Harvard by David Perkins showed that 90% of the errors in thinking were errors of perception, not of logic at all. And if you perceive the world in a certain way, no matter how logical you are, your behavior will be inappropriate, will be wrong. Perception is very important. In fact, it is even worse than that, because there is a mathematical theorem, Gödel's theorem, which states that from within any situation, you can never logically prove the starting points. So it doesn't matter how logical you can never prove your starting points. So what are those starting points? Arbitrary perceptions. So no matter how logical you think you are, it all depends on your perception. So perceptual thinking, very important, very neglected. That's why I have programs in different countries around the world teaching perceptual thinking in schools and so on. And in some countries, by law, it is in every school. Then there is design thinking. Design is how you put together what you have to deliver the value that you want. It is constructive. It is not judgmental. It is saying we are moving towards value. We are creating value. Judgment tries to find the truth. Design creates the value. And that again is very neglected in education. Design thinking. We believe design is only for architects and graphic designers and furniture designers. Design is for everyone. It is just as important as analysis. We produce value through design, putting together what we have to deliver the values we want. Then there is creative thinking. Creative thinking is a mathematical necessity, because as information comes in over time, we put it together in a way that makes sense at the moment. But in the future, when some other information comes along, we may need to go back and restructure everything and put things together in a new way. There is a mathematical need for creativity. But we have believed creativity is a special talent which only some people have and other people do not have, and that is nonsense, absolute nonsense. Creativity is a skill which everyone can learn. That is why I designed the techniques of lateral thinking. They are based on understanding of the brain as a self-organizing system which makes patterns. All patterning systems are asymmetric, and from that we get both the need for lateral thinking and the techniques of lateral thinking. For example, one technique used by a workshop in South Africa for a steel company, one technique generated 21,000 ideas in one afternoon, 21,000, deliberately. Now, you could sit around and wait for ideas, you could brainstorm, you would never generate 21,000 ideas in one afternoon. So these are processes which can be learned, practiced, and used. So, what I'm saying is our thinking is not as good as we believe it to be. We believe it to be excellent because we can get to the moon and so on. In technical areas, our thinking is good. But in human affairs, our thinking is very poor and has progressed very little over the last 2,400 years. So we still use the thinking put together by the GG3. The GG3 are the Greek gang of three, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. which is very largely judgment-based. So, while of course we must pay attention to climate and climate change, we need to pay even more attention to our human thinking, with which we are very satisfied and yet which is not as good as we believe it to be. So that, in my mind, is the biggest problem facing the world today.